Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome everyone to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, VJR Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, D. Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday night, January the 8th, 2025. Jimmy, and if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Man Speak. So, Tom, let's give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. If you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Our show starts at 8 p.m., but they're uploaded to the social media, to the internet at 9 p.m. to 5 different platforms. And if you haven't already, hit the like button to help us with the algorithm.
yes.
And if you're watching the show live, invite a friend, family member, or coworker, and hell, even a frenemy, so you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring leading information about the Black community to social media. And while I'm on this, one more thing before we move on, Tom, I just want to give a shout out to my partner in crime here, Tommy Duncan, for getting us through another year. 2024 is a good, successful year. We increased our viewership over the course of the year by almost 100,000, so which is a great thing. So we look forward to even bigger numbers this year in 2025. And Tom, you do a great job with bringing the news topics to our show, and a lot of all of our guests were people you reached out to and invited. So you did a great job, man. Have been doing a great job. So I don't know if you get recognized enough for all of the contributions that you make to the show. So people, if you're out there, give Tommy a little hand, shout out for all the great work that he does. So with that being said, Tom, let's get on and do what we do best, man.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Jimmy, and want to thank our fans and our audience for the love that you've shown us for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, Jimmy. I'm not exactly sure what year we're on now, but
Well, the first year was a little shaky, so
But if you have not done so thus far, go ahead and get into the chat line so we can get the feedback from you. You know, we love to get feedback from our fans. And so make sure that you jump on. And it is time to start the show. You know, it's into a new year, Jimmy, and we're going to start off the show with a couple of people that we've missed and will miss because they are now in the realm of our ancestors.
oh, okay.
And some of these folks we anticipate that you'll probably know. But let's go ahead and get the commemoration started. First, we'd like to start off with a shout out to the folks who are in the baseball world and love this man and know a little bit about baseball history, the Ricky Henderson, Major League Baseball Hall of Famer and the league's all-time stolen bases
Yeah.
leader, who became an ancestor late last year on December the 20th at the age of 65. Still a very young man, the Chicago native named the Man of Steel, not Steel, but Steal because of the stolen bases.
Stolen bases.
He was one of the greatest players to wear an Oakland A's jersey and was widely considered to be one of the best leadoff hitters and base stealers in sports history. During his 25-year career, he compiled 2,055 hits, 297 home runs, 1,115 RBIs. His 1,406 stolen bases and 2,295 career runs remain major league records, Jimmy. And this was a long time ago, Jimmy. So this was a bad dude. He was
Yeah.
a 10-time All-Star and won the league MVP in 1990 with the A's. He also spent 7 years in New York, 5 years with the Yanks, 2 years with the Mets. He won two World Series titles, one with the Oakland A's in 1989 and again with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1993. He was inducted to the Major League Hall of Fame as a first ballot Hall of Famer in 2009. Just 6 days later, his jersey was retired with the Oakland A's, Jimmy. That was back when I actually watched a little Major League Baseball.
Sure. Tom, let me say this: you can't be a great base stealer unless your on base percentage is really high. So you either have to hit for average and get hits, or get walks and get on base. So he was both, man. He was great base stealer, but he was also great time of getting on base. So via either hits or walks, man. But like I said, you can't steal a base unless you get to first base first. And once he got there, man, it wasn't just going from first to second. Sometimes it was still from second to third. It
Yep,
was just as good as a hit or a bunt to put the team in position to win. So Bayfield was a well thought man. Not a whole lot of players master it today, but yeah, if you can advance a runner to a base by stealing the base, man, that's better than a hit sometimes.
it is. I mean, and you look up fast in the dictionary, this man's picture was under the definition of fast. So we want to again send our condolences to his family, friends, the Major League Baseball community, and of course his loved ones. We say Ashe, excuse me, to the great Ricky Henderson. Next, this is actually for someone who probably watched some movies. This isn't an A-list actor, but someone whose face you might recognize. This is kind of one of his older pictures, but the actor Art Evans, best known for his roles in the film A Soldier Story, which I saw in Die Hard 2, became an ancestor on December the 21st
Oh,
at
okay.
the tender age of 82. The actor's cause of death was complications related to diabetes. During the 1970s and 80s, he appeared in numerous television series and films, including Lead Belly, MASH, The Fall Guy, and Hill Street Blues. Evans' breakout role in 1984 was in the critically acclaimed film A Soldier Story, playing Private Wilkie, also starring Howard E. Rollins and Adolph Caesar. I don't know, Jimmy, if you remember.
I
Uh,
do remember him now. That I didn't recognize the name before you told me about him, but I do remember him in quite a few movies. So
Yeah, absolutely. And this was him in A Soldier Story. He made another splash on the silver screen, of course, with Die Hard 2, a sequel to the action thriller alongside Bruce Willis, where he played Barnes, an air traffic control tower employee who assisted Bruce Willis in the film. So, a longtime actor, what we'll call a working actor, had a lot of roles throughout the year. Want to send our condolences to his family, loved ones, and of course, the acting community for his legacy and what he left for our community. Next, Jimmy, this name is probably familiar to those who were in the business world. The great Richard Parsons, one of corporate America's most prominent executives, became an ancestor on December the 26th at the age of 76. Parsons served as chairman of the financial giant Citigroup, in addition to chairman and CEO of Time Warner, one of the largest communication companies in the world. He also was interim chairman of the NBA's Los Angeles Clippers and interim chairman of the board for CBS. He was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in 2015 and cited unanticipated complications from the condition. He stepped down on December the 3rd, 2024, from the board of Estee Lauder, citing health reasons. He had been Estee Lauder's board on their board for 25 years. He transcended quietly while at his Manhattan residence, passing of cancer. He has been around for a long time, very,
yeah.
very successful executive. So for those of you out there who, are one of those guys who just quietly got things done, added value to the market, world known, well known and world esteemed Richard Parsons. We want to send, of course, our condolences out to his families, and of course, all of those who knew and loved him.
on top of plus, one of the things I appreciated was there was no trail of scandals behind him. You didn't hear about it. But if you were to hear about it, it was something good. It was no scandals, no love children out there, man. No misses, nobody caught. Pictures, on Epstein Island or something, man. So none of that going on, man. And so he just quietly did what he was supposed to do, man. Successful every place he went. Um, so we send our well wishes to his family, man, for their loss.
This is true, Jimmy. I guess in a day and age where, not only are the entertainers in the news and media over some craziness, a lot of times you have some CEOs, including some owners of NFL franchises, who get jailed for drug charges and all kinds of drama.
Well, Tom, like I said, they still haven't released the full list of all the people that they blocked out off the Epstein list, man. But we know we have presidents on that list. We have Bill Gates on that list, man.
True.
and a lot of others, man. So it's good to see in this age that that there are some people who decided to just do the right thing, man. Stay away from those circles, um, where other rich and famous, powerful people decide to indulge in play and get caught eventually.
True, true. This face, well known, especially in the sports community, but even for those who don't follow sports,
Okay,
we have another gentleman esteemed in his community, Greg Gumbel, renowned sports anchor and commentator, became an ancestor on December the 27th, 2024, at the age of 78 after a battle with cancer. He left a legacy of excellence, inspiration, dedication with over 50 extraordinary years in the sports broadcasting industry. Served as a play-to-play announcer and studio host for CBS Sports after spending several years on the air for NBC Sports. He won fame with his work hosting the NFL Today. I remember that show, in addition to multiple Super Bowls and Olympics as well. His younger brother, by the way, Bryant Gumbel, also rose to fame in broadcasting as host of NBC's Today Show and Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel on HBO. And so this was the sportscasting duo of two gentlemen who were at their absolute best. Of course, Gumbo also worked for ESPN, WMAQ Chicago, where he won 2 Emmys and a WFAN radio in New York City. So our condolences go to the Gumbo family, who have definitely lost a giant, not just within their family, but within the American communications community and throughout the world.
okay,
So I would be remiss, Jimmy, if we did not at least take a moment to acknowledge, of course, the recent passing also of former President Jimmy Carter,
right,
who we lost as well. And I'm not exactly sure, Jimmy, when the funeral is, but of course, they've been making his rounds throughout the state of Georgia and throughout the community as well. And so wanted to make sure I also acknowledge the passing of Jimmy Carter, former president as well. Jimmy, that was back in the 70s
right.
when he was president.
Yeah, Tom. When McCain died, I think he was on tour for almost 2 months before
Wow.
they buried him, man. So I would imagine you're right that the body is making its way through Georgia. There'll be a viewing in D.C. for a while. Um, so whenever they do plan the actual funeral, it'll be a big thing. There'll be dignitaries from around the world who will come and pay their respects. I'm sure. So it may be another month, Tom, before they actually bury him.
Gotcha. Our condolences to the Carter family, all those in the state of Georgia, of course, the political community who has lost a giant. Jimmy, not very many people can say that they held the flag of being president of the United States.
That is true. That is true. Only 47 men so far. So,
Exactly. All right, Jimmy, and we're going to have to give a shout out to what I consider to be one of the most talented actresses, probably unheralded actress, who is now getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The great Shirley Ralph, a Jamaican American born Emmy-winning actress on TV and the big screen, will be honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on January the 29th of this year, celebrating Ralph's decades-long career in entertainment. Born in Waterbury, Connecticut, she is the daughter of Jamaican fashion designer Ivy Ralph, creator of iconic Caribou suit, and college professor Stanley Ralph. Raised between Mandeville, Jamaica, and Long Island, New York, she began her career in the 1970s, appearing in Sidney Poitier's A Piece of the Action. I actually remember that movie. She was a
mhm,
very young lady at the time, in addition to several TV shows like Good Times and The Jeffersons. She had a string of roles in film and TV, including Sister Act 2 and Moesha. And more recently, she won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in the comedy series in 2022, becoming the second Black actress to win in the category after Jackie Harry, who won in 1987 for 227, and the Critics' Choice Television Award for Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series in 2023. She still, of course, maintains her roots in Jamaica, and said that her mother's dying wish to all of her children was to never, ever forget where they came from in Jamaica. So shout outs to Cheryl Lee Ralph, one of my favorite actresses when I was much, much younger. We want to congratulate and applaud her as well.
Yes.
All right, Jimmy, before we get into some of our core stories for today, want to give a shout out to a couple of folks that we have on the
Who do we have on the chat line?
Miss Cudgel Audrey K is on the chat line. I want to thank her for joining us. Miss Tanya Hall is on the chat line. Ken Manus, what's going on, brother Ken Manus? Thank you for joining us this evening. And I believe that is it for right now. But we expect to have a couple more people who are watching who join the chat line. So I want to make sure that everybody jumps on and participates in the fun. So we talked about this late last year, Jimmy, in terms of, we got Brother Frederick V. Roberts, Esquire, chat line as well. So I want to thank him for joining us as well. I want to start talking about how we're going to refine the show in terms of the content, Jimmy. So I'm going to let you speak to that a few minutes so people will know where we're going to go in 2025.
So we're going to do a little bit more business development focus in 2025. So we decided to bring back Black music history. So we'll bring that back. We'll tweak it a little bit by doing maybe a music segment, a movie segment, and then there'll be a segment on what happened with the on the previous show. We'll ask a question from the previous show. So you have to watch in order to get that correct. But we want everyone to have a chance to participate. But one of the focuses for 2025 is we want to see more business development happening. And so we know we need to be a catalyst for making that happen. And so Tommy will be doing, you have one either on the 15th or the 22nd. I'm not sure when you're going to do which one of those weeks. But Tommy's going to do a seminar on selling. You know, Tommy's a champion salesperson, and I've been bugging him for years now to give some of that knowledge back, man, and help some of our young business people learn how to sell. I mean, selling is so important to a business, and if you can't sell your product or your service, please don't waste your time trying to start a business unless you plan on spending a lot of money to hire someone to sell it for you. There may be times when business is slow, when the bottom line is not looking as healthy as you want it to be, and you may have to get out there and help bring in some revenue. So you need to know how to do that in order to keep your business viable, and especially initially to get it off the ground. So selling is so important. And so Tommy will be doing either next week or the week after that.
Yeah, be a couple weeks.
Availability of our guests for next week. So please tune in and watch that. But 2025 is going to be the catalyst. It's going to be the kickoff year, people. We have to get up out of this the hole that we're in. We have to generate more wealth. We have to hold on to our wealth, be wiser with it, and we need to reach out to others who are struggling around the world to do business with those who have been locked out. It's not just Black people here in America. Trust me, it's Black folks around the world that we need to reach out to. But we can't reach out to them, Tom, if our pockets are empty. So, we need to reach out and create business opportunities, manufacturing opportunities, create channels of marketing and sales with folks who look like us. So we can climb up together, Tom, and rise up together. So 2025 will be a little bit more of that focus. It's not going to be every week, but it will be at least 1 or 2 shows each month will be dedicated to business development. And so if there are areas that, if you watch the show, if there are areas that you want to see or want us to cover, please, 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 I can't beg you enough to just get on the chat line and let us know what you want us to cover, whether it's raising capital, financing, marketing, branding, coaching, selling, any aspect of business that you're interested in, let us know, and we will make sure that we tailor future shows based on your recommendations.
And with that being said, Jimmy, we actually have a couple of other guests who are on our chat line who are going to be a part of that equation. Next Wednesday, we're going to have Brother Greg Harrington, who's going to join us to talk about branding, professional and personal branding. He actually joined us late last year to talk about goal and vision setting. Did an excellent job. We're going to have him back, as we promised, to talk about professional and personal branding. So that'll be part of, figuring out how to build and shape your brand to go to market, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you're in corporate America, whether you are just wanting to get a side gig or do something different in order to bring more economy to your house. Because what, in essence, we're going to have to figure out how to do is to get beyond our level of anxiety about, number one, building our own brand, building our own economy, starting more businesses, and working together, because you have no power, you have no politics without economy in this country.
True. Absolutely true, Tom. So we're going to do our part this year and going forward. So please help us and assist. Get on the chat line. Let us know what you're interested in. We'll do our absolute best to bring on the talent and provide the resources you need. So when you're ready to start that business or expand the business, then you'll have some of the tools that you need. And hopefully you've gotten some of it from right here. And we have done our part about being a service to the Black community.
Exactly. I also want to give a shout out to John Williams, who has been on our show a few times to talk about tax planning. He is an extraordinary CPA. He'll definitely be on this year as well to talk about tax strategies and things that you need to know. Of course, tax season is coming up since it's the new year, so we want to thank him for joining us as well. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of stories, Jimmy, a couple of core stories in the news, and then we'll talk about sports on the back end. We talked a little bit earlier today. Of course, everybody is still reeling from the tragedy that happened in New Orleans, just recently, Jimmy. And I know you have some roots. You have family in the state of Louisiana, North Louisiana, but also you went to school in New Orleans.
Yes, I did.
That area as well, Jimmy. So first, we want to make sure that we send our condolences to those who lost loved ones, who were impacted by that tragedy, in the entertainment capital of the country, bar none, in New Orleans, and talk a little bit about why this happened. Could it have been prevented, and where do we go from here?
Well, Tom, I would like to think that it could have been prevented or made it a little more difficult for this lunatic to drive a truck down Bourbon Street, one of the most popular tourist streets in New Orleans, next to maybe Royal or Decatur Street. But Bourbon Street is one street that everyone knows of, even if you're not from New Orleans. And for him to be able to drive his truck down this street at 70 miles an hour, hitting people, assaulting people, 14 people, I believe, are dead, 2 dozen more in the hospital in a critical condition. And Tom, my question is, I don't understand the chief of police. When questioned about this, she seemed like she wasn't prepared for this, that the police department didn't have the right barriers up, the barriers that are in place to stop vehicles were somehow still in storage, and they don't know how to deploy them. And I'm just wondering, how in the world did this lady get selected to be the police chief of New Orleans? I know she came from Oakland, and it didn't seem like she had a stellar record in Oakland, like she turned anything around there crime-wise. She was never the police chief of a tourist city like New Orleans. Maybe if she was San Francisco police chief, maybe it'd be different, or Orlando, or some city that relies on tourism. But I don't understand the hire. I'm not saying that a woman can't be the police chief, but this lady doesn't seem like she deserved this position, Tom, because she seemed to be incompetent at preparing for the things that a city like New Orleans needs to stay safe. You have the Super Bowl, you have the Sugar Bowl there, you have other events, you have hundreds of events going on in New Orleans around the year. They need someone to be the police chief who has a focus on how to keep a city with millions upon millions of visitors coming to and visiting, how to keep the city safe and how to keep the tourists safe. I don't think she has a clue. So all I can chalk this up to, Tom, is that maybe she was a DEI hire, which is sad because it set women back, I believe, because she is a white woman, but she just didn't handle herself very well during the press conferences with the answers that she provided. And it just seemed like it's sad that she doesn't have a clue as to what she should be doing as police chief to keep that city safe, to allow something like this happen.
Yeah, and I'd like to get our folks on the chat line if they have any opinions on this as well. I mean, some of you, of course, may also have roots there, so I would like to get your feedback. And Kirkpatrick is the police chief's name, and I've been in the law enforcement community for some years. Unlike the sheriff, who is an elected official in the law enforcement community, a police chief is an appointed official in law enforcement, and so sometimes that role can be a little bit more political than what you might expect with it being law enforcement. But it's interesting. She's only had the job for less than 4 or 5 months, maybe, I think, Jimmy, because I think she was just officially or formally installed in the latter part of last year. As you mentioned, she was in Oakland for a few years, starting in 2017. And I don't know of anybody who says that Oakland is an extremely safe city, and not that she could fix everything. But I think the sad thing about it is on two levels. The level of safety for folks, because New Orleans and Bourbon Street is the city that practically never sleeps.
Right.
There's always activity on there. And of course, there's always an impending threat. The other side that we've got to talk about is mental health. I mean, the guy who did this, he's dead. He's gone right now. And the question is, why? And so the FBI will continue to investigate any leads that might show, what his agenda was, what it was that he was trying to do. He had a military background, and obviously, there were other ammunition that they found in the area as
Yeah,
well.
there were lots of IEDs that they had planted. Luckily, they didn't go off. And so, yeah, he was hell bent on causing quite a bit of damage and commotion with his activities. So
It could have been a lot worse, Jimmy. I mean,
it could have been much worse.
It's extremely bad in terms of what happened because of the loss of life. It could have been a lot worse, and doing a little background from just a little bit that we know that we had some trauma in his life, job loss, some other stuff that's going on. And, in my opinion, this is a classic mental health issue, even though I'm not a psychologist. But also, unfortunately, we have a ton of mental health issues, not just for this guy who's not a young kid as well, but for adults as well. Whether we're talking about folks who come back from military who go through trauma, folks who literally see trauma every day in the healthcare space or in the law enforcement space. And we have got to, not that we don't take it seriously, but we have got to do something more substantive to deal with the mental health issues that are catastrophic in this country, Jimmy, because it's just waiting until the next one happens. It's not if, but when.
Well, another thing, Tom, I don't quite understand is that if you have them on video, planting these IEDs, leaving coolers in different places, there has to some flags should have been set off that this is suspicious behavior, and if that's the case, to start looking for this guy a lot earlier. So I'm not sure where the video feeds are going, if they have any AI behind it to analyze the video to highlight and flag suspicious activity. But if they don't have these tools in place, they're just having the cameras up and not doing you very much good if all you're going to do is record after the fact. But I would like to hope that maybe this chief of police learned something from this activity, the city manager and the mayor there learned something from this incident, and put a little bit more focus on keeping the city safe, because you're going to drive up the number one revenue stream for the city, tourism, if you can't keep the place safe. So hopefully there are no more incidents like this ever again in the history of the city, and that keeping folks safe become their top priority.
And Jimmy, I know that you probably have your eyes a little bit more wide open to New Orleans since you went to school there, have some roots there as well. Obviously, I know that there have been some tragic things. There have been shootings probably in the Bourbon Street area. Anything close to this that you can kind of remember?
I don't remember anything this tragic time in a very long time. Especially something on this level, man, for 14, 15, 16 people dead, over 24 in the hospital, hospitalized, some of those people in critical care, holding on for life. It is very difficult to drive up. Generally, there are barriers that are placed around the French quarters. Unless you're a delivery truck, it's very hard to drive vehicles up into the French quarters. Now, there are some back ways to get in around Iberville and around the back end of but that's not the high tourist areas of Orlean and Bourbon Street or Decatur Street, or Jackson Square. I just hope the city does a much better job of going forward in the future of realizing that when you have millions of people in the city, thousands of people walking the streets, that you have to put those barriers up. You have to reroute traffic. You have to make it difficult for people to be able to just drive into areas where people are just walking around.
Yeah, this is true. And there has to be obviously some transit, getting through that because there are people who live there. There are people who have
There are people who live in the quarters, yes.
exactly. So in some cases you have to have some transit there, but this was pretty catastrophic, Jimmy. And I believe that the Biden administration has put on high alert so that they can get additional assistance in order to support that, especially considering that number one, you got the Super Bowl coming up within the next month. Of course, you also have Mardi Gras season coming up.
Mardi Gras coming up, Tom. Even more people will be in the city. Millions will be in that city coming to visit for Mardi Gras. So, yeah, they need to get this. They need to reassure everyone, Tom, that they have this under control. And having a police chief who sounds shaky in her answers for the press conference that I saw, where they did everything they could to protect her and whisk her away, even from answering questions, is not the right response. So she needs to be in front of this, reassuring everyone that she's in control, she has it under control, and that the city is safe.
How long do you think she's going to last, Jimmy? Or do you think that she's going to end up?
Tom, if there's anything else that happens, she's gone. I'm pretty sure that that'll be the end of her. Um, so for her own self-preservation, she needs to make sure she gets on top of this. But unfortunately, Tom, this is not the you don't want a police chief or safety personnel learning on the job like this, not at that high, at that level. So you need someone who understands what it takes to keep a big city, a tourist city, safe. I mean, it's hard enough dealing with prostitution and pickpockets and other parasitic crimes that are portrayed on the tourists and people who live there. But to have something like this happen is just what they call it, lanyard, just icing on the cake. Uh, so you don't want your city to get the reputation of being unsafe. This is what happened in Oakland, Tom. This is why there are no In-N-Out burgers there. There are a bunch of chains that restaurants that packed up and left. Um, hell, your Walmart left, Walgreens left. A lot of businesses who have left Oakland under her watch. This is why I don't understand how in the world did she get this job in New Orleans after doing such a horrendous job in Oakland. It's not like she kept Oakland safe or protected from the elements. And then she gets promoted from the pits of Oakland. Not that much disrespect for Oakland, but I mean, let's face it, it's a high crime area. It's not a place I would ever live,
And the
Tom.
people from Oakland will tell you that.
Yes, and for how that city got run into the ground, I would never live there for no amount of money. Uh, so don't send any offers in for me to come to Oakland anytime soon. It'll be okay. My feelings will not be hurt. But for her to have a horrendous track record, not improve anything in Oakland. In fact, if anything, made it worse. To get a coveted position like the chief of police job in New Orleans, which should be high profile, a bunch of fun, Tom.
Yeah.
And she's made it to this. Hopefully, if she gets run out of New Orleans, hopefully that'll be a learning lesson for the city manager and for the mayor there to hire someone with experience in keeping a tourist city safe for your next hire.
Yeah.
This is not on the job training. This is not anyone can do this job. Don't do the Jerry Jones kind of thought. I can go out and get any coach to coach this team because we have so much talent. Yeah, don't do one of those because you see it's worked out horrendous here in Dallas uh, since we haven't won a Super Bowl since what 95, 97.
Yeah. 96, I believe.
So
All right, let's go ahead to another interesting story. We'll spend a couple of minutes on it.
yeah,
That was pretty interesting. Your I won't say your friend, but the Prime Minister of Canada has just resigned. Justin Trudeau. For those of you who may not have heard, the beleaguered Prime Minister's departure follows growing calls for his resignation from members of his own party, with liberals lagging behind the opposition Conservative Party in opinion polls and internal battles raging over his handling of President-elect Donald Trump. That pressure rose with the resignation first of Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland last month, who was also the finance minister, quitting unexpectedly, citing concerns over Trudeau's administration's relatively cooperative approach to incoming Trump administration's plan to increase tariffs on Canadian goods by 25%. Trudeau, who swept to power in 2015, he's been in office a pretty long time and has governed for 9 years, was once the most popular leader in the group of seven, the world's most advanced liberal economies. What was already a difficult year for Trudeau last year got even harder when Trump said after being reelected in November that he would sign an executive order imposing tariffs on all products coming to the United States from Mexico and Canada. On January the 20th is one of his many executive orders. This is coming from Trump. I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff. Days later, Trudeau visited the president-elect at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, later writing on his post on X, "Thanks for the dinner last night, President Trump. I look forward to the work we can do together again." Trump has since taken jabs at Trudeau and Canada, suggesting making the country America's 51st state and referring to the prime minister as a governor of the great state of Canada. Jimmy, this sounds like a hot mess. It sounds like a hot mess. I grew up in Oak Cliff. You grew up in South. This is what we would call getting pumped.
You did call the governor of Canada, Tom. This is jumping off the Titanic before you hit the iceberg, Tom. He hasn't been a great prime minister for Canada. He's raised taxes. A lot of these COVID-style regulations that they put in place to tamp down on free speech and on movements are still in place even after the COVID scare has been lifted. And a lot of his people are not happy, Tom. And then you have Trump, who's commands a great deal of attention. He sucks all of the air out of the room for anyone else. He seems to be the only world leader now that anyone's talking about here in the U.S. and in Canada now, and probably in Denmark and Greenland, and probably the Europeans also, because he is threatening to use the one thing that he knows. I mean, Canada is one of our biggest trading partners. They're our largest trading partner. I think Mexico is second. And so when you start talking about putting a 25% tariff on the products coming from Canada into the U.S., which basically will outprice their products, which Americans have plenty of choices. We don't necessarily have to buy Canadian bacon or Canadian wood or resources. Tom, that will be a heavy impact on the Canadian economy. The people there are not happy. Then you threaten to not secure Canada. We spend about $200 billion securing Canada every year. That comes into question about, why are we spending so much money to defend your country when you should be spending more for your own defense? Well, the way they pay for some of the social services there in Canada is because they don't have to defend their country to the extent that the U.S. will provide some coverage for them. So Trump knows he's playing with the aces, Tom, and the jokers in the deck. And, you're playing spades and you don't know what with spades in your hand. And the big joker, the little joker on top of that. So he has all of the cards. He has the leverage. And I'm pretty sure that Canada and Mexico will capitulate, secure the borders, give him exactly what he wants, or face the risk that he's going to follow through with the tariff threat. And if you think he's not serious, as China about that. So he imposed that same 25% tariffs on them, on many of their products. They thought they could do a pressure campaign to have the force them to lifting it. It didn't work. And then in the end, they capitulated and caved. So I think these two countries will also. Denmark would be interesting to see if they work out some kind of deal for America to provide some kind of protection for Greenland, Tom, put a military base there, maybe some economic development, some cooperative agreements. I know Trump's talking about trying to buy Greenland, but I don't think Denmark is interested in selling, even though the people there, I think 54,000 people live on that cold rock, are interested in the possibility. One, I know they want to be independent of Denmark, but there's growing calls if the invitation to become a part of the U.S. is open, we may like to at least sit down and talk about it and entertain the prospect. So of becoming the 51st country.
And I guess the question would be, when it comes around to something like that, it's all about resources, and it always comes down to
All about resources, Tom.
exactly. So what's there that we won't? Otherwise, we're not even talking about it.
Tom, you know what? They sit under a mile of ice. You have to go down a mile in some places before you even hit dirt. And so some people they don't even know what dirt really looks like. There's only dirt maybe on the coastal areas of Greenland. The rest of the island is the largest island in the world. Um, it is covered with ice. But Tom, geologists estimate that there are at least 100 billion gallons, 100 billion barrels of oil sitting under the ice. And then even more than that on the coastal areas out in the ocean. And then beyond the oil, Tom, they have nickel, cobalt. These are things that are needed for batteries, lithium. So they have a lot of natural resources that the U.S. could use for the future. And I believe Trump is going to invoke the Monroe Doctrine, which is basically going to say that only America can sort of rule over North, South, and Central America and Greenland. We're going to just throw Greenland into the Americas, and that they have to be under our control for our own safety and economic survival. And so we're going to have to work this out diplomatically if we can. But if it comes down to it, Tom, we may have to borrow a page from the Russians and the Chinese and just look at finding ways to roll our military up and just take it.
It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting after the 20th of this month. It'll be entertaining. So, folks, get your popcorn out. It's going to be an interesting ride. All right, Jimmy, we got about 20 minutes left, a little bit left, so we can get into a little bit about sports, Jimmy. Over the last couple of weeks,
we didn't talk about sports, Tom. What do you have?
College
and pros.
We got both. So we're going to talk a little bit about college and a little bit about pros. First, we've got to talk about the NCAA college football playoff coming up, Jimmy. So we have kind of gotten down to the semifinals now, Jimmy. It's going to be Texas and Ohio State, Penn State, and Notre Dame, Jimmy. And so you got two old school blue bloods versus, of course, going against each other in Penn State and Notre Dame. And then you've got a perennial powerhouse in Ohio State. And then Texas is now back on the map and in the SEC.
Well, Tom, I'm cheering for Texas over Ohio State, even though Ohio State looked really good. And Texas defense, Tom, plays hard for 3 quarters, but they've been having some letdowns in that 4th quarter. They need to tighten up. And then I'm cheering for Notre Dame, Tom, because they have a black coach. I like to see him go to the finals. Hell, if he made it to the finals, I may actually end up cheering for Notre Dame over Texas if both of them make it there.
Gotcha. That's Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman is the head coach at Notre Dame.
Yes, we certainly need to see more black head coaches at the college ranks and in the pro ranks, Tom. So that's what I'm cheering for.
I don't know, in your memory, have we had a black coach who has coached a NCAA football national championship?
No.
I don't recall that we have.
No.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm definitely going to be pulling for Notre Dame in the Texas-Ohio State game. I'm going to take Ohio State. I think Ohio State, even though they are beatable, man, they are very well-rounded. They've got a beast at the receiver, the young freshman man who could probably go to the pros right now if he was eligible, and got a solid run game, a solid defense. Texas is a little bit streaky, and sometimes you don't know what you get from it. I don't know how they let Arizona State back in the quarterfinal game.
Defense time gets real shaky sometimes, just like against Georgia. And here's the thing, Tom. I don't know the name of the wide receiver for Ohio State. Where's number 2?
Yes.
But a very talented kid, very fast. But their quarterback, I believe his name is Howard. Once again, Tom, I thought Oregon had the fastest team in college, man. But they made Oregon look slow. The way they were playing out there and hitting. And then I got to give credit to Notre Dame, man. That defense of theirs, I mean, God, they move, they cover, and they tackle, Tom. They don't really give up much. You don't see people breaking tackles and making big yards on them. But they were hitting and sticking in that game, man. I was impressed. I hadn't watched Notre Dame all year long, man, until the playoffs came along. I was like, oh man, these kids can play. So the brother got them well prepared, man, well coached. So this should be a very good weekend. Everybody, get your popcorn out. Sit down this weekend and watch the games, watch the playoffs.
Gotcha. The young guy, his name is Jeremiah Smith, number 4 for Ohio State.
Number four, number two. Okay, number four.
Number
Wide
4,
receiver.
Jeremiah Smith. He's a wide receiver, 6'3", 215
Oh,
pounds.
dude, the kid is talented.
And Jimmy, this is the crazy thing about it. They just graduated Marvin Harrison Jr., who was all world. And Marvin Harrison Jr., you think there might be another generation before they have somebody that good. And then they have a freshman who actually has almost made them forget about Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, Tom, a lot of these kids, man, are coming up. They play damn near year round. They go to these camps and they go to schools where they live with their coaches, man. So these kids are better prepared coming out of high school, going to college, and the kids coming out of college are better prepared to go into the pros than ever before in the history of our sports, man. So this is why I don't believe in paying veterans a great deal of money when they re-sign them to long-term contracts, Tom, when these kids coming out of college are so much younger and faster and stronger than ever, man. So if you have a good coach that can prepare and teach and get you prepared for their system, then you can do some things through the draft where you don't have to rely on veteran players as much. But having a good mix is always a good thing. But yeah, the college ranks, Tom, these kids are phenomenal coming out of school these days. It's really a joy to watch college football, man. It's not some of the stagnant, boring. Every now and then a good play is made. I mean, yeah, these kids are playing, man. They're playing like they're playing for money.
Agree with that. So I'm gonna take Ohio State over Texas this week. You know, with the Penn State Notre Dame game, man, both of them are equally matched. Both of them have solid defenses. Both of them have a balanced offensive attack. I think it's going to come down to who's the best coach team this weekend, who has the least penalties, and of course the turnover battle as well is going to make the difference in the game, because I think these teams are both equally matched. I don't really see that either team has had an extremely strong regular season in terms of the team that they beat. I mean, even Penn State, who's been solid all year, they lost to Ohio State earlier in the year. But when you look at their quality wins, and we're talking about Penn State, not very many what I would consider to be quality wins. Lost to Oregon as well right before going into the playoffs, Jimmy. So both of these teams, Notre Dame, same thing. I think probably the strongest quality win that they had was over Texas A&M, when Texas A&M had a reasonable rank at that point in time, Jimmy. But I'm pulling for Notre Dame. I really am. For some reason, my mind is telling me to lean towards Penn State. But
I'm pulling for Notre Dame also in Texas this week coming up, Tom.
Yep. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm pulling for Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame. My mind is telling me Penn State. We'll see what happens when we get back next year, and then we'll call it on the national championship on the 20th.
All right, there we go.
All right, with the last 10 minutes, Jimmy, let's go to the pros, the NFL, Jimmy. It is playoff time. We've got the wild card weekend in play. And, Jimmy, this is what it looks like. We have, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions that have the bye this week. And on the AFC side, you have the Broncos and the Bills, the Steelers and the Ravens. The Los Angeles Chargers, Jimmy, are back in it, playing the Houston Texans. On the NFC side, you got Green Bay, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then you've got the Minnesota Vikings and the LA Rams. What are your thoughts, my friend? And we'll get to the Cowboys at the very end, because we know they're not in the playoffs, but let's talk about playoffs first.
Well, Tom, I'm happy for the Houston Texans for getting into the playoffs with a young coach and a young quarterback, and just to let them know that unlike them who hate against us, the folks here in Dallas are not hating against them. We're going to cheer for y'all in the playoffs, man, and hope it all works out. So, um, but Tom, I've noticed there've been quite a few firings this week, man, of head coaches. So I hope that's an opportunity for some young coordinators, man, to move up. Um, like I said, man, we talked earlier. I am really hoping that we fire our coach here in Dallas, that we just let him go, and that if Flores is available, he may be in the playoffs, so maybe a while before we can actually talk to him. But if he's available, Tom, I like what he did with the short time he was in Miami.
Mhm.
Um, to come
And
to
he,
the
and he
Cowboys.
ended up getting in trouble, of course, because of the Tua situation. I guess he was being a little bit more old school and hard nosed man, and
Tom,
it
these
worked
young
out
players,
for him.
man, are babied, so sometimes you have to bring the best out of people. I mean, coming out of the Marine Corps, I understand how that works, man. You strip a player, a person down, you take away everything they identify with as being a man, and then you slowly rebuild them the way you want to into a hardcore killing machine. That's just the process, Tom. And if Tua didn't understand that he had to be torn down in order to get to rebuild to what the coach wanted him to be, the leader on that team to get better performance, then that's just a crybaby league that we live in, Tom. And unfortunately, the owners fell for it. But that's exactly what we need here in Dallas. A hard knocks, hardcore coach to come in here, man, and whip him some discipline. The Cowboys are still one of the most penalized teams in football. That's just discipline. False starts, that's just discipline. Holding calls, that's discipline. You know, uh,
And, and,
coming
and, and that has been endemic throughout Mike McCarthy's tenure. A bunch of penalties, a
I'm
bunch of
telling you.
boneheaded mistakes. They're soft. They don't win the games when they really got to have it against the teams that they really got to have wins against.
And Tom, they don't know how to play lights out unless they have to. Their backs against the wall. They play like we have nothing to lose when we actually have nothing to lose.
Like
Y'all in the
this year.
playoffs. Yeah, y'all in the playoffs. You have nothing to play for anymore. Then you want to go out there and play your hearts out. Well, we need you to play your heart out on game one. We need a coach who can bring that out of you on game one, and for you to take your job seriously enough to be prepared for the off-field training, for the preseason, for the training before preseason, stay in shape, not coming to camp overweight, out of shape, like Zeke has done a couple of times, man. And now it shows, it catches up with you eventually when you have that kind of attitude, man, towards the game. That's been very generous. These guys make a lot of money, man, to play a game once a week, man. So um, and if you don't want to do it, there's some young kids coming out of college who will gladly take your spot. So,
So let me ask you this. You mentioned Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, he has to be released. He was released. He got picked up by the team. I think it was Chargers. Why don't you think the Cowboys, I mean, clearly Dowdy, younger, fresher legs, Zeke is well past his prime. Should they have given Ezekiel Elliott more carries throughout the year?
no, that just carries to take away from developing. Um, you already have a running back, man, that you're trying
Dowdy.
to develop. And then the young kid out of Kansas State, um, what was that kid's name, man?
His last name, I think, is Vaughn or something like that.
Yeah,
Bruce Vaughn. Bruce
Bruce
Vaughn.
Vaughn.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so you need to get more carries, man, because he's your change up kind of running back, man, very elusive, short kid, so he can hide behind lineman, man, and get lost in the crowd. But those two should have gotten the bulk of the carries. Every carry you give Zeke is just a wasted carry. And then on top of that, when you get around the goal line, you say, well, we need him for short yardage. Well, you got a fullback that you brought in from Boise State for that Lucky. Um, and so Zeke just takes away from developing your young players, man. And so, yeah, once they let Zeke go, man, after you paid him out his contract, you should have just let him go, never brought him back, man. So, should have left him in New England, man, as far as I'm concerned.
So what do you think Jerry actually does with Mike McCarthy?
Well, you know what? I think Mike got snooker behind the A-ball, man, with Jerry agreeing to that once the season's over with, to extend the negotiating period out for another week or 10 days. I think they have until the 15th to make a decision on Mike before he's a free agent. But here's the thing, Tom, is that shortly after the season's over with, coaches are being fired. How many of those teams are going to have their decisions pretty much made up by the 15th? Now
Yep.
there are probably a few teams that are in the playoffs that teams are considering, and that they really can't talk to the coordinators until they're bounced out of the playoffs. So there may be one or two that will hold out, but really the bulk of if there's 6 jobs that are out there now, 4 of them will be filled before Mike Puffy Duff is free to talk to anybody. So he should have never agreed to that. I mean, he should have opted that when the season's over with. If you hadn't extended my contract, hadn't extended my contract by then I'm a free agent and I can just walk out the door. You've been in this game long enough, and that just goes to show that you're not prepared to manage your damn career. Then how are you going to manage that goddamn team effectively? I'm not saying he's a bad coach. He's a good X and O's guy. He did help Dak become a slightly better quarterback. But Tom, the only thing that matters here is winning and getting a Super Bowl.
True.
And you may have won a regular season, but you haven't won but one playoff game, and you haven't gotten into a Super Bowl. So
That's true.
so your 5 years here in Dallas, and 2 of those seasons being losing seasons, has been an object failure. So you failed here in Dallas. But hey, Jerry has a way of rewarding failed coaches, man. So go back and look at some of the other losers that we've had here as coach, man, uh, who've been here longer than they should have been.
All right. Last thing before we drop off, we got about 3 minutes left. Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins, got traded there, asked for a trade from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now he's saying he's want out. I don't know if it's because he can't handle it because they didn't get into the playoffs, Jimmy, but he got his bag going to the Miami Dolphins. Now he says he wants out.
Tom, I would not. I'm a talented player, man, but I'm sorry. You left the team with Mahomes as quarterback. I mean, I think his last season there, he ranked up, 17, 1,800 yards receiving? I
Yeah.
mean, you were the go-to guy, and you left them over a few $1,000,000. I know you had, 60, $70 million on the table, and Miami gave you a few million more. I don't know if they have an income tax there in Kansas City, man. But surely at some point, you telling me that your family's not going to be able to survive unless you get an extra 2, 3, $4 million. I'm not saying it's a small amount of money, but that's not enough money for you to simply be chasing every dollar, despite what it may have, the impact it may have on your career. So now you're in Miami. You have other talented receivers there. You're not necessarily the go-to guy, and I'm sorry, Tua is not Mahomes.
No, he's not. Nobody's Mahomes.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. So you should have known what you were getting into, and then now that you're there, your numbers are about pretty much cut in half,
Yep.
which is to be expected almost. I'm pretty sure the folks in Miami would love to have gotten more production out of him, Tom. But this is the same person we got into a debate over with the being pulled over by the cops and rolled the damn window down.
Right.
I mean, to me, he's a hothead, and it's all about him, man. So I would leave his butt right there.
Yep.
Tell him to work it out. You want to be there, so you're there. So
Yep.
play your damn contract out like a man, and don't put Miami in a position where they've given you the contract you want, and now you want to force a trade.
Yep. Yeah, and definitely don't burn your bridges. Hopefully, there's something for young athletes to learn from this situation. And that's not that you should put yourself in harm's way or in a bad situation. But he actually wanted to go to a team so he could get his bag because he could not get the money that he wanted to out of Kansas City. But this is the other thing that you also have to learn. Tom Brady was never the highest paid quarterback in
About
the
$5
NFL.
million difference over a 3-4 year period. So we're talking about a few $100,000 a year difference between what Kansas City could offer and what Miami paid him. So
I
no,
understand. I understand, Jimmy.
you
This
can make up $1 million in endorsements, Tom. You go get a couple of commercials with the local car company there, dealership. Surely your agent can find you $1 million in Kansas City somewhere to make up the damn difference.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, this is at the end of the day. Patrick Mahomes is not the highest paid quarterback in the
No,
NFL.
he's not. He's like
And,
number
and,
90
and, Tom, and Tom Brady, I don't believe, was the highest paid quarterback for
Never
the
the
majority
highest
of
paid.
his career.
Yeah, Tom Brady was never the highest paid quarterback. This is 6, 7 damn Super Bowls or 6 in New England, Tom.
Yeah,
Um, but he purposely was paid underpaid so the team could have money to get other talent
to
around
get
him.
pieces around him. Exactly.
And Mahomes, man, even though Tom, after every Super Bowl, he could easily back the truck up to the bank and say, "Fill it up. I want a new contract," and rightfully could easily, make a claim to deserve it. He's doing the one thing that quarterbacks should do, which is win Super Bowls.
Yep.
So if anybody should be asking for more money every damn year, he has a legitimate right to do it. But he's playing out his contract, Tom, even though he may be the what, eighth, ninth highest paid player in the league now. But
Right.
his little contract for 250 didn't make him the highest paid player, but maybe a year.
Right. And the other thing you have to consider, Jimmy, is not just the money that you're making while you're in the league, but after you leave the league. So if you want to talk about endorsements, you want to talk about being able to create your own brand, you want to talk about being a sports analyst and make some of that money afterwards. These are the things that you got to think about, not just right now. Because there is a lot of money to be made after you retire. Average athlete only plays maybe 4.5 years. He's obviously well beyond that. But you look at what Tom Brady's doing. He is just skipped into the next phase of his career as an analyst and making money there too. So these are the things that you have to think about in being selfish. Because one of the things that you will bring up is that Dak Prescott is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, highest paid player. But what does that leave for everybody else in order to put the pieces around him so that they can get deep into the playoffs?
Tom, the highest paid player in the league, and you only have one playoff win.
Yep.
What are we paying for? What are you being rewarded for by getting a contract that big with one playoff win, Tom?
You got to figure out what's most important. And I guess, being highest paid is fine. But you know what? I think in the Hall of Fame, they don't always talk about who was the highest paid, but who won the most Super Bowls, who had the greatest impact.
That is true. That's what it comes down to, Tom.
Yep.
And right now, the only player that is in position to give Brady a run for his money as for Super Bowl wins is Mahomes.
Yep.
The rest of these yahoos, you know what? If you ain't producing those kind of results, putting your team in position to win it all, Tom, you shouldn't have highest paid even in your vocabulary. It shouldn't even be part of your language skills, even utter those words. I want to be the highest paid player when you haven't produced one Super Bowl win yet. Hell, you barely produced a playoff win. You
True.
can't win in the playoffs, and you talking about the highest paid player. So I don't understand Jerry and that logic, man. He would have got laughed out of my office if I was GM negotiating the damn contract. Yeah, I was like, son, we gave you plenty of chances to win here, put talent around you, and you haven't done it. So um, for the results that you're producing, yeah, we can go get a kid out of college and do the same, give us those same results. So and not spend as much money.
All right, Jimmy, we are out of time, a couple of minutes. But
Time goes too quickly, man. We may have to expand the show to 2 hours, man.
we will continue this conversation next week. Of course, tune in, folks. We will have Gregory Harrington, our entrepreneur extraordinaire, to talk about personal and professional branding. We'll talk a little bit maybe about sports, a little bit about what happened the next 2 days in college football, and then what happened in the wild card. And then we'll have Greg Harrington to talk about how to build your brand, folks. So we want to thank you for joining in. Happy New Year again, and we will see you next week because of course if it's Wednesday night, Jimmy.
Certainly, black man speak.
Good night, everyone.